In the previous session, you watched a sample vocabulary lesson that illustrated the verbal response strategies covered to this point in the active participation in-service. This session introduces written and action response strategies designed to increase the active participation of all students in your classroom. The session addresses some of the challenges involved in using written responses and provides solutions for common problems such as differing writing speeds. Dr. Archer focuses on strategies that are strongly supported in the research on active participation, such as response cards and response slates. She also demonstrates and provides examples of how to use action responses, acting out, gestures, hand signals, and so on, to increase students' understanding and recall of information, regardless of the grade level you teach.
So we have looked at a number of ways, a number of procedures that we could use in our class, and now we're going to look at written responses and then action responses. So on this slide, I've written the kinds of materials that students might use in your class. They could write on paper, graph paper, a graphic organizer, they could have a journal, they could have a vocabulary log. They could write on a Post-it, we could organize all of those. They could write on a poster. They could write on and type on a computer. They could all have an electric tablet like an iPad. Well, that's right after you get one. And they could also write on a slate or a whiteboard, no matter what we call it, or they could hold up a response card. So there's lots of materials. But there's also many ways that we could have them make responses. And so as I go through these, not all of them will be appropriate to the group you're teaching in elementary school, but those that are, I just want you to check on your paper. So I might simply, instead of having them say an answer, I could have them write the answer down. And it could be anything from write this spelling word down and give them feedback to write down this answer, comprehension answer, write this math problem down and solve it. If it is a comprehension question though, I might give them a sentence starter or a writing frame if it's even a more involved, thoughtful answer, just as we have already done. And that's exactly what the next one says, is that not just have them write down the answer, but scaffold it with a sentence starter or a writing frame. Now in the upper grades, they could also take notes, like Cornell notes, 2-column notes. They could highlight, they could underline. Those are all types of written responses. They could, remember in brainstorming, where we did think, pair, share, did they just think or did they think and record? Which one? Think and record. So that some of the responses we've already looked at, some of the procedures also require writing. And they could do a quick write down everything you know about this topic, or write down everything you've learned about this topic. Now, in upper grades, we often give them, as they come into a class, a warm-up activity. So maybe I'm teaching science and there's 2 questions up on the screen as you walk in and you write those answers down. Or maybe I'm a math teacher and there's 4 review problems up on the screen as a warm-up. You come in, you write those down, you solve them, and then I give you feedback on it. We might even, in some classes with older kids, have like an exit ticket. Write down the big idea of this day's instruction. And you write down, active participation is critical. That's what you'd write down. And that would be your exit ticket. So we have all of these types of responses. Here's a challenge though. Could you have students that wrote very rapidly versus other students who took an inordinate amount of time to write exactly the same answer down? Could it happen? Yes or no? Yes. Absolutely. Fluency of handwriting, sometimes in a lesson, not during independent work, but in a lesson, makes written responses more difficult. And so we have to sort of gauge the amount of time that we are going to need for a response. And so that we can avoid students being early finishers. Because if there's early finishers, now they have a void. They have nothing to do. And is it possible that some students might fill that void? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. And I know some of you are new teachers starting out this year. And here's what I can guarantee if you're a new teacher. The universe will send you a student that has an advanced void filler repertoire. Yes. I started my career 46 years ago, but I can still remember Andrew Hoskins. I remember where he sat. I remember what he wore. I remember what he did. And about 20 years after I had him as a student, I went to train teachers in a district, and there was this really handsome young man, and it said Andrew Hoskins. And I went up to him and looked at him, and he said, without me saying anything, "I got better." So, one of the biggest management tools for us to remember is avoid the void, for they will fill it. And that is the problem. So we could, to avoid the void on written responses, we could make the responses fairly short. Now let me give you a perfect example. Let's say I'm teaching a math lesson and I've done demonstration, I've done guided practice, and now I'm going to check understanding, and I put up 6 problems on the screen. But this student who is so good in math that you're able to solve every problem 1 minute before your peers are done. You are good in math, aren't you? And so now if there's 6 problems up there, this little mental math, and she finishes every problem 1 minute before her peers, how much waiting time would she have, everyone? 6 minutes. But if I only put up 1 problem on the screen, how much waiting time would she have? 1 minute. There's a huge difference between 6 minutes of waiting time and 1 minute. 6 minutes, we'll see her entire repertoire of inappropriate behavior. Actually, you have none. A goody-goody for life, I know. But in 1 minute, she's just thinking what she might do. So it really is a management concern here. So give 1 problem and then give the kids feedback. So they're even going to have more accurate responses on the remaining 5 because of the feedback. Another possibility is to make the written response eternal. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I've done it with you all day. When I asked you to brainstorm, I didn't say write 3 ideas down. Because if I had done that, would we have had early finishers, yes or no? Yes. And then I would have had management problems. Well, no, but there would be a void and you might fill it. So I said, write ideas until I say stop. And Harrison, you might write 23 ideas down. Justin, you might have 50 ideas. Sue, you might have 3. But they would be involved the whole time. Okay? So this is really something you have to think about is, how am I going to avoid the void, either by making the responses short or making them what, everyone? Eternal. Now, when we look at responses, there's another little challenge in elementary school, in that sometimes you have put in front of children a worksheet, a graphic organizer, and you want to guide them through it. And maybe, for example, you say, do item number 1. But Mandy here, she does not just do number 1, she does number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. And I want you to discuss with your partner, what would be the challenge of someone sneaking ahead of the group? So talk it over with your partner, why that might create a challenge, and go. Okay, thank you very much. And as I monitored, you either looked at this academically or behaviorally. And so Sue and Holly looked at it from the behavioral perspective. And so if I have said, do number 1, and the student goes forward and does many items, and thus they are done, could we have a void? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. And they might fill it. So we might end up with behavioral problems. But Sean and Justin were saying another challenge is that they're not attending to the input, to the feedback that I'm given. And is it possible they could have errors? Yes or no? Yes, and so because their lack of attention to the input, they might make errors. And they could even make multiple errors. And if they make multiple errors, we know it's actually going to take more trials to get the right stuff in after they have practiced an error. So we just need to reduce the number of kids who are going ahead. Now, how can we do that? Well, you just give them a directive. So that you could say, write this down, and when you're done, put your pencil down. See, the child who wants to get ahead is the same child who wants to get their pencil down to show how smart they are. So it just feeds into ego, pretty rampant at your grade levels. Or you could have them turn their paper over and there would be absolutely nothing they could sneak to. Or even better, instead of giving it out to them, put it up on the screen, limit it only to that item so there's like nothing to sneak to. But the big idea here is we have to be very conscious that we may be setting up behavioral or academic challenges just through our own practice and monitoring our own practice. Well, this is the big slide here on written responses. It would be possible that these students should have in the classroom whiteboards, slates that they could write on. And I was asked, does it have to be like a little whiteboard? No. For example, I'm working in a school where the teacher got very sturdy sleeve protectors, put a piece of cardboard in it and a piece of paper and a marker, and then they had a little piece of felt so they could do the same thing. And they kept this in their notebook in the upper grades so that they could take it out. So I was in one class, and the only problem here was they actually wrote all over their desk because of the finish on it. And then they wiped it off. The only problem is you can't hold it up. And so this would be like a better option. So you could use your imagination. I went to one class where the teacher had bought plastic dishes or plastic plates. And you write on the plastic plate and woo, it works beautifully. That is a very inexpensive alternative. So it just is something you can write on, wipe off, and you can also hold it up. And what would be important to remember if we were using this? Would we want to use it occasionally in a certain subject area or often? Which one, everyone? Often. Because remember, we're going to try to make these routine. So if we had it in spelling, it would be routine. If we use it at the beginning of a science class to write answers to questions on what we've covered in science, we'd use it at the beginning of every period. All of these do better if they are made into a routine. And would we want to just give one person a slate, yes or no? We want to involve everyone. That's the glory of any of these hold-up procedures, is everybody is involved. Now, here's the only challenge that I find with slates, which I quite adore, and the kids do too, is that could you have a slate blurter? Yes or no, everyone? Yes, okay. And is it possible someone might copy their answer, yes or no? Yes. Okay, so you have them write on it, and then until you say, show me, then they would hold it up. Okay? Slates are an excellent thing that you might do. If you have iPads, and all your students have iPads, and it will happen. So one day I was in a class where all the kids did have an iPad, and the teacher said, please bring up your virtual whiteboard. So there's an app that is called Whiteboard. And the teacher said, we're going to do our spelling dictation, write down the word spell, and the students wrote down the word spell, and the teacher said, show me, and they all held it up. And then she said, erase. They didn't have to find their sock or their felt. They didn't have to smell the markers. They just hit trash and it was gone. So there are a lot of things that we're going to be able to carry over into our wonderful technological improvements. So we might use response slates. Along with this, we might consider also utilizing what are referred to as response cards. And when we brainstormed, a number of you wrote down, my students might have a yes and no card. Okay? And so when this original research was done, it was actually done with cards. And so just to illustrate this point, maybe I am a primary teacher, maybe in kindergarten, first grade, or in an intervention group that some of you teach, and maybe we have sounds that we have learned. And so they have letter cards and they lay them out. And I say, I'll say the sounds, touch the letter, and then hold it up. And so I could say, and they would touch this, and I'd say, show me, and they could hold it up. And the benefit of this is everybody is going to be, what everyone? Accountable, and I'm going to be able to monitor. But it is useful across classes. So I just reflected on other classes that I recently taught where I used response cards. And one was a science lesson where we were learning about different types of volcanoes. And so this one you would know, composite volcano, because woo, Mount Hood. And shield volcanoes, woo, go to Hawaii. And cinder cone volcanoes, many of them in Arizona. So the students had these in front of them, and I put up a picture, and I said, now put your finger on the card that represents this volcano. And then I said, show me, and they all held it up. Now, let's just think about this for a moment. There's a number of benefits of using these cards. All the students feel what, everyone? Accountable. And not only do they feel accountable, but I'm able to monitor and adjust my lesson. But here's another benefit. The set of potential responses is significantly reduced. It's only these three. It's not all the million words in English, it's one of these three. Is that likely to scaffold and support the kids in terms of accuracy, yes or no? Yes. So that's a huge benefit for English language learners, for included special ed students, is that you have a higher probability of success. One day I was in a class where the class had, since kindergarten actually, or first grade, every day in language arts, they had had a sentence that was put up that they had to copy and then edit it for the punctuation, capitalization, and from daily oral language. And the teacher said to me, you know, my students are so bored by this. They've done it since first grade. And I said, well, let's change the response mode. And so we gave every student an envelope and cards, and we said, we modeled it first, make one with a period, good, make one with a question mark, exclamation mark, quotation marks, comma, and make one say no air, one say capital air. And so they had these, and then we put up the sentence. They had to figure out how many airs there were and show us. But then we touched something, and they had to show if it's no air or a capital air or a comma was needed or a period. Suddenly, it was their favorite activity. Even though the content had not changed, the activity, the active participation procedure had changed, and they were much more interested in it. Now, here's the only response I've gotten when we can all see how this would be so wonderful, but then you think, oh, how am I going to orchestrate this? Like all of these envelopes with different things in it. And so you have a response sheet, and would you please take that out? And I'm going to just borrow yours for a minute, and then I'll give it back to you. So one possibility is for the generic kinds of responses you might use again and again, such as yes and no, or maybe you're going to put up multiple choice and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, or agree, disagree, or it might be true and false, or A, B, C, D. They could have this in their desk, in their notebook, or in their binder, or in their folder, and you could say, take out your response sheet and put up yes or no. Everybody do it. Put up yes or no, hold it like this. Okay, so we learned a number of vocabulary words. Pretend you're my second graders. And I'm going to ask you questions about a word. And you're going to show me if the answer is yes or if the answer is no. Okay? And don't say it, just point to it. If you were sitting in class and you were looking out the window, and then you were looking at the other students, and then you were looking at the board, and then you were looking back at your thing, is that an example of concentrate, yes or no? Okay, and no, it is not. That would not be what, everyone? Concentrate. So you're sitting in class and your math is in front of you and you're doing one problem after the next and you never look up. Is that an example of concentrate? Show me. And yes, it is. It's an example of what, everyone? Concentrate. So you can see that logistics challenges could be handled with something like this. Would this not be great to start the year with? Right in their desk so that they could pull it out. So we could use response cards, or on the alternative, a response sheet. Well, would you now pop over to 46?